So I'm going to call a meeting of the Legislative Committee to order at 11:47 on this Tuesday, December 12th. Welcome, everybody. Roll call, please.
Member Chapman. Here. Member Childress.
Yes.
Chair Stark.
Here.
Member Eckhoff.
Here.
Member Galassi.
Here.
Member Zay.
Here.
All right, thank you. Next, I move to approve the minutes from the
Second.
regular meeting on Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. I've got a motion from me and a second from Chaplin. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment received.
Okay, thank you. Chair's remarks. I just really want to say, and we've been thanking people all morning, but I really think that Cheryl Marquet is a rock star, and I could not do this without her. She is, I mean, you can never retire because you're the brainchild of everything legislative. And frankly, I think you're fantastic. Connor, thank you for your work as well. And thank you, team, for being on this committee.
I echo that.
Oh, she's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to move to approve the legislative agenda.
Second.
LEG-R-0001-24, the resolution to adopt the county's 2024 state legislative program. I moved, Chaplin seconded it. Before we approve, we've got some things to discuss. My first question for Cheryl is I've got, and we've got some amendments coming up too, but first of all, Cheryl, I've got the 2023 state legislative agenda and then the 2024 that you put out for us. Thank you so much. And what are the changes from year to year?
I don't have the 23 in front of me, but I would say, does everybody have a copy of the agenda?
Yes.
If we can just go to the priority page. I think probably Chair Conroy, mental health, of course, is
Yes.
gonna move to the top of the priority list. The health department wrote a lot of the narrative that's in the actual document. And this year we're gonna be focusing on trying to probably get an operational pilot program grant for the Crisis Recovery Center. We've been working with the governor's office and human services staff in Springfield. It is a model program, especially because it'll be taking youth. So that is going to be a priority. The state also through Medicaid does not have an overnight rate, which is why right now the CRC is a 23.5-hour facility because we don't have an overnight rate. So that's something we're going to be looking at in addition to incentives to get more students to enter the workforce for social workers, therapists, psychiatrists. That's an ongoing issue as well. So I would say mental health has been moved on. It was on last year, but with the emphasis on the CRC and the workforce and just building that infrastructure that we need. The second one, public transit, Chair Conroy, Chris Schneider, John Lober, we have spent, I don't know how many, probably over 100 hours with Chair Conroy and Chair Ozak going over all the CMAQ report that was issued in October. Chair Conroy voted for the report only to move the conversation forward. She didn't necessarily agree with everything that was in there. He recommended a lot of different revenue sources, as you heard Mayor Marcucci say this morning. It's a huge amount of money they need. It's $738 million just for operations in addition to $3 or $4 billion in infrastructure. Certainly the county is concerned as a Collier County with very limited access to transit. Most of our residents, other than taking a train downtown, do not have access to transit. So they're talking about $738 million just to keep what we have, let alone expand access. And I would guess if the General Assembly is asking all of you to sign off on an increase in the RTA sales tax, which is very likely, we'll want to see more access for that, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be a year of education. I can't imagine this year. I mean, Mark can weigh in, of course. He's the expert on transportation. I can't imagine they were going to do a revenue source like that in an election year. And there needs to be a lot of education and groundwork laid. Mark, you want to talk about transit a little bit, maybe?
Sure. Yeah, you want me to just dive into that right now?
If you don't know, Mark Polis is one of our state lobbyists. So welcome, Mark.
Good morning. Hello, Chairwoman and members of the committee. Yeah, so I'll weigh in on the transit. Yeah, as has been said, this PART report by CMAP, it was a legislative requirement that CMAP, as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, embark on a how do we close the nearly $750 million hole that's going to exist in the mass transit space. Mass transit meaning Metro, RTA, PACE, and CTA. How do we fill that hole, and what are ideas? So that report was quite extensive. It looked at a lot of governance, which should be code word for the suburbs, which is red flag for be careful. Somebody might want to take over ownership of mass transit from the suburbs. So we have our antennas up quite high and are listening loudly to that. Making sure that Chicago doesn't get more of a say in things like Metro and other of the mass transit that happens in and around DuPage County. But the big thing that they focused on was the fiscal cliff and the gap that exists there, and what are funding mechanisms. So as has been said, the chairwoman, as well as many others that took part on this PART committee, said the same thing. Listen, I'll sign off on the report, but I don't necessarily agree with everything that's in it. But what I could say is, I think Springfield typically does not act until it's, required to act, meaning if a sunset's going to sunset next year, they typically don't take up that bill this year. It's the same thing with the fiscal cliff. Mass transit does not fall off the cliff in 2024, so they've got a little bit of time to explore this. So I would say this will be 2024, the year of many committee hearings in both the House and the Senate, to bring a lot of folks forward on what's a way to close the gap. Several things have been take existing motor fuel taxes and reallocate those to some of that money to mass transit. There's been ideas about expanding services, taxes to services like legal services, landscaping services, hair cutting, nail services. Those types of things have been talked about for nearly 2 decades. Hasn't happened yet. Increasing the RTA sales tax, right? That's been on the table. There's a number of other options on there. So I think folks are going to kind of sort of put pens to paper and have committee hearings and that, but I don't anticipate a major bill being voted on in the 2024 session. It's been mentioned that it's an election year, and I'll stop there on the mass transit, and then I can give kind of sort of a full report about the election and where we're at, veto session, and that when you guys are ready for it.
Have questions specific to transit? Okay, I would like Cheryl to go on with this, but I want to make sure that member you has guests in there, and she has to be out of this room by noon to go back to her guests. So I want to make sure that she has a chance to talk about a proposed amendment. First of all, we don't put together a bill list and advocate for a bill list because it would just be too unwieldy for our lobbyists. But there are bill recommendations that this is from 2023. That's why you haven't seen it. But members in the committee and outside of the committee come to me with specific passions of theirs. For example, member Krajewski wants to embrace the outlawing of declawing cats and debarking dogs, but we don't say that specifically. What we say down here, for example, at the bottom of your legislative priority is just the general caring for animal population, the enactment of other measures to protect animals from inhumane treatment. So we don't specifically call out declawing or debarking, but it's in here. It's in our legislative agenda. So with that little background, I would like member you to talk about her proposed amendment to our state legislative priorities.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I am not a member of this committee, so I've just asked for your support with regard to this amendment to the 2024 state legislative priorities. If you'll just go to keeping our community safe, that particular bullet point, there's additional language that you've been given, and it has to do with victims of domestic violence, specifically Karina's bill. So that did not pass in veto session, and it will be again filed in the new session. And it specifically has to do with requiring law enforcement officers to quickly remove firearms from people who have orders of protection entered against them. Now, we already have this remedy. However, it's not required by law that the search and seizure, the warrant, is immediately issued at the same time a plenary or an emergency order of protection is entered. And so there's this loophole, and all the time, respondents, people who do have firearms, they get to keep their firearms despite having an order of protection against them. And that is really a safety concern, really big issue for domestic violence survivors and victims. All the domestic violence advocates are strongly in favor of this bill, and we know that it's going to get filed again. So I hope that you guys will also support it as part of our legislative agenda.
Thank you, Melvin. Appreciate it. Go enjoy your cat. All right, so that was a little commercial break to maybe to support this, but let's move on with Cheryl again. We were at erosion of MFT dollars in our bullet points.
Sure. So I'll go quickly. This is a new item that was not on last year. I think you all know, you're all very engaged in the EV issue. There was a great article in Sunday's Daily Girls by Jake Griffin. If you didn't catch it, was in the clips yesterday, about some of the issues with EVs, which is, you know, we haven't, it's less than 1% of the cars in Illinois right now, and 2/3 of them are in the suburban areas. So as Mayor Marcucci was saying today, we're kind of getting ahead a little bit. The state's put aside 12 million for incentives to purchase these cars. 75% of owners actually charge them at home. So this whole discussion of who's going to pay for charging, is it free? I have to go pay for gas. All those different issues are going to start coming to a head, especially with the discussion on transit, because at some point, Chris Snyder will tell you, in 5 years or so, our MFT revenue is going to really drop. And our entire county highway program is based on MFT dollars with no replacement in sight. So that is a concern that we've got to put on the radar.
Cheryl, can I ask you if this, one of our members, I believe it was members A, talked about how we'd like to encourage our lobbyists to do something in Springfield regarding a registration fee for electric vehicles, to pay for our roads, or some sort of fee because they don't pay the gas tax or the motor fuel tax. So is that part of this bullet point?
Well,
do you
Mark
think?
Pulis can speak to this, but the state, to the Secretary of State's office, keeps all that fee. There's, I don't know if legally we could even pass something to share the registration fees with local governments, but I would ask Mark that question. Jim Zay, if you want to ask him the question.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure, so I can-
we've talked about this, Mark. I mean, can't DuPage County put a registration fee in for electric cars? We have about 5,100 cars in DuPage County that are electric. Obviously, they're heavier, they're bigger, they wear on our roads, we get nothing for them. Can we put something in any kind of tail on legislation that allows counties over 350,000 to charge a registration fee? I don't want any of the states, let them keep it. I want our own. I mean, we know the state's not gonna give it to us anyways. Can we put it in where a larger suburban county can actually get a registration fee for electric vehicles?
Boy, we could spend the next 3 hours having this conversation, so I'll try to condense this into 60 or 90 seconds or less. So rebuild Illinois capital bill. We did raise the registration fees on electric vehicles. We did raise registration fees on all vehicles. We did double the gas tax. We did write a number of things. And we basically doubled the budget of IDOT, as well as doubled the budgets of the local roads and streets, which are shared with all the locals, municipalities, counties, townships, and the rest. We also expanded the ability for communities like DuPage, there's only a couple of them, that can implement their own motor fuel tax, which, if I remember correctly, DuPage County has its own county motor fuel tax, and we actually increased it. That's correct, right?
That's 8 cents, right? The maximum.
Right. Yep. So we have that. So one, we can always make another run at increasing the local motor fuel tax, or going down there and saying let's increase what we could in the cap on that. We could also make a run at registration fees that could be charged. In other states, they call them wheel taxes, like the state of Indiana has a local wheel tax. So yes, home rule units do have the ability to charge other fees and have a fee structure for that. But what I can tell you is we did pass legislation in the spring that formed the Blue Ribbon Transportation Committee. And that the intent of that And there's been now 2 bills passed that have extended that committee out well beyond, I think it's into 2025 now. And the intent of that committee is to largely study this issue as well as a number of others, right? Like, there's a lot of frustration, I'm sure, at the county level. There's certainly at my level and others' levels, the frustration in the ability for IDOT to get projects moving and out. There's frustration with DCEO getting grant money approved and the grant process moving to get that money kicked over to counties and municipalities. So we're studying all of that through the Blue Ribbon Commission. I was actually appointed by the governor to that commission. So I am in all of those meetings and do get a voice. There's only, I think, 14 or 16 of us in the state that sit on that commission. A lot of them are legislators. The transportation chair in the Senate, for example, Ram Villavalam sits on that commission with me. So we just approved a scope of work to hire an outside firm that does not do work with IDOT to study all of these issues: electric vehicles, local roads and streets programs, what are other countries doing, and the like. So stay tuned. I anticipate in the next 12 months or so having a report on that. But certainly we can explore this coming session to do something in the short run, which is either increase the cap on the local motor fuel tax and or implement something like local wheel tax like they have in places like Indiana.
Oh, what members there are you good?
Yeah, I mean, on an election year, they're not gonna raise motor fuel tax. Maybe it'd just be easier to make DuPage home rule. I think that would be a lot easier if you could do that.
Member
If you
Glassy.
get that passed, that'd be perfect.
Right?
Just to follow up, and this is kind of granular, but I've had an electric vehicle for probably 8 years now, and I fully think that people should be paying for their own charge. I only charge my car at home. I don't understand the spending money to supply electric vehicle owners charging, for them to charge their cars for free. To me, that doesn't add up. I think I pay for gas in my gas car. I should pay for my own electricity for my electric car. I do love my electric vehicle. I fully support electric vehicles, but I think owners of those electric vehicles should be paying for their charging.
Yeah, so I would say on that note, there was a bill passed I want to say it was in veto, that it finally got passed, but Senator Sarah Feigenholtz had a bill originally that required all new construction include electric charging stations at all new construction. So both multifamily and single family residences. It got pared back a little bit, and it mandated that all new construction be electric vehicle capable, meaning that it has, the proper breaker panel, the conduit, the wiring and everything, so that all you needed to do is then have somebody hook up a charging station. So I think that will go a long way moving into the future of all the new construction, that you'll have folks that have these, ready, capable electric charging stations right at the house, so that we don't get into this like public space of paying for others to basically fuel their vehicles.
That's wonderful. And we have a proper charging station at our home now, but when we first owned our electric vehicle, we literally just plugged it in like you plug in a curling iron. And it took much longer to charge, but it's still charged overnight. So
Sure.
I think that, that's all I gotta
So
say.
you've been
Thank
really
you. Any other
upfront for
questions
some
regarding
years.
this issue?
Was that?
You've been
All
running
right,
the roads
thank you.
for some-
Cheryl, the next issue?
Sure. So this is also a new one, the impact fee repeal. As you know, in May, County Board repealed the impact fee. However, I think and Chris knows, I think it's 5.4 million is sitting in that impact fee fund, but we don't have the ability to spend it unless we go back to the legislature and get an amendment that allows the transportation department to use it for capacity related improvements is what it's required. So we do need a bill to be put in for that.
Okay, questions?
The next one, allocation fair share of LGDF, that's been on our agenda probably for 20 years. Every year for the past couple of years, the legislature will give us a half a cent. Last year, they went from 6.0 to like 6.47. So I don't think they're ever going to get to 10%, but every year, the mayors and managers, that's their top legislative priority. We add it to our agenda as well. Keeping our communities safe. Last year, this committee did support an assault weapons ban, which was passed by the state of Illinois. So this year, we have a member Yu's amendment that she just made about domestic violence and taking those weapons away from individuals who have an order of protection entered against them. And then member Chaplin's brought up several times a gun storage safety bill and an education bill. There has been a couple of gun safety public education bills that have passed, but they've never been funded. One last year was for Illinois Department of Public Health to have a public, education campaign.
Wait, the state not funding a man?
And the state didn't
That's so weird.
do it in appropriation, so then they haven't done it. So,
Gotcha.
I mean, every month or so, it seems like there's a child that's been killed by a weapon in their home. So I have some statistics on that in there. So that portion is new.
So let me ask you, is member use amendment something we can just put in this category then?
Yeah, right.
Okay. Perfect. So would we, when we get to the vote, would we need to put that in there as an amendment? Okay.
I want to adopt the language of member use amendment, which.
For this. Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, Cheryl, go ahead.
No. Environmental, we don't have a lot of specific bills. I know last year we were able to work on the carpet recycling bill and a couple others. This year, Joy Hens had said the extended producer responsibility, which is the packaging, that continues to be an issue. The county is a member of that extended producer responsibility product stewardship committee, but we're always looking at legislation that will reduce the amount of waste that's put in our landfills and increasing recycling opportunities. I think the county's still at about 30% recycling, which is very low. So that's an area we really need to continue to work on. Affordable housing was in our agenda last year. We didn't really have a specific direction. I've talked with Mary Keating and Paul Haas, who are staffing the ad hoc committee that Chair Conroy created earlier this year. One particular bill that I've shown to Connor that was introduced last year and will probably be reintroduced this year allows the county the authority to have a land bank of property, and it's a faster way of being able to take property and turn it into, some type of development. It's sort of like a complement to clean and lean, I guess is the best way of describing it. But we'll be looking for any bills that are introduced that will give non-home rural counties, DuPage, some more tools to quickly, whether it's property the county's purchased or surplus property, or incentives for developers to develop property or affordable housing. And then the last one is, of course, caring for our animal population. As Chair DeSart mentioned, as specific bills are introduced, like there may not be a declawing bill. Brian had said, maybe we want some home rule communities to pass ordinances first. That was a strategy we did with puppy mills before going right to the state, because it builds support.
Right.
So we'll see, Mark here, I'm in contact with him. We'll see what bills are introduced, and probably in the February meeting and March meeting, maybe we'll even have to meet twice. We'll have a bill list like we did last year. It won't be 100 bills. We cannot slip and lobby 100 bills,
Like
maybe 20, 30, but based on the priorities you set and based on input, it doesn't have to be in here just for the county to vote on it, because I don't know what's going to come up. I can't predict what issues are going to come, but I talked to Chair Conroy, I talked to Chair DeSart, and we decide on some bills, and any bills that you send us. Chris Schneider sends me a bill, Mary Keating sends me bills, and that's what you guys will vote on in terms of taking an actual position. The majority of the 6,000 bills I just monitor, right?
And if I could just say, Cheryl, as Cheryl's pointed out before, for those new to the committee, the shorter list of actual bills we have, the better our lobbyists can lobby our representatives in Springfield. If we had 500 bills that we were watching, that would spread our lobbyists out 500 ways. If we have one bill our lobbyists were watching, then that would give that one bill so much more power, so I appreciate that. Cheryl?
Is that accurate, Mark?
You got it.
Yeah, and this is just a framework. It's, we amended the state agenda last year. You can still do it, and Connor said it doesn't have to be on this list. This committee can still vote to take positions. Last year, I guess we had on our agenda extend the sunset of the ETSB Act. That was done. Expand tourism opportunities. We were able to work with our lobbyists to get Beth Marquetti a $650,000 grant from DECIO just for DuPage. And the child tax credit, we couldn't even get it out of the rules committee. So it's something we can't try. If it pops up and moves, we can bring it back here. But it was not something that was gonna move. So those are some of the differences from last year.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Cheryl. Now, some of you, after getting this on Thursday or Friday, the 2024 state legislative priorities, some of you, like member you, have come to me with some other ideas. And so let's discuss those now. Member Chaplin?
Thank you. So, and I usually get my stuff in on time. I'm sorry, I didn't because I had a lot going on last week and over the weekend. But, and I know I talked with Cheryl a little bit about this, but we were just at an event this weekend where we heard our chair say that food insecurity is the biggest problem facing DuPage County. There's nothing in our agenda that says it's a priority. And I understand that the state really, I don't know if the state can't do anything about it, but I just thought a statement like addressing food insecurity must be a priority in our state as we strive to build a just and compassionate society in which no individual goes hungry. By prioritizing comprehensive policies, we can create a framework that supports food assistance program, bolsters community-based initiatives, and invests in sustainable agricultural practices. Ensuring that we have equitable access to nutritious food for vulnerable populations, including children, seniors, and low-income families. So that was just something, I don't know if we want to put in the agenda, but, I love animals, but when we talk about caring for animals and not for people in our legislative agenda, I don't know that,
You said that, I did.
that just, I don't know. I just,
I
think
understand.
it really does bother me.
Okay.
I know that, that's all I'm saying.
I understand.
I did it. I know I mentioned, we had animals somewhere else and not people. And I got quite a few comments saying, thank you for addressing humans' needs. So
Yeah.
we do have it with our affordable housing and things like that, but it is a big issue in the county. So if we can, people know that it's a priority for the county, I think it's important, but that's all.
Okay, anybody else? Member Eckhoff?
Regarding the mental health care system, I agree with everything that's in this, but as I said the last time the health department came over and talked about mental health, is I think there needs to be some exploration as to what the cause of it is. And this seems to be a reactive thing. We're dealing with a crisis as opposed to maybe trying to figure out what needs to change. And I was hoping there's something in there about that.
Anybody else? Members A?
Yeah, this is just a framework too.
Yes.
There's gonna be more things that are gonna come forward. There might be bills on food.
Yeah.
We talked about affordable housing. We know the good parcels are gone. Maybe we want to do something that mandates municipalities, give us the infrastructure, that have to give us water and sewer. Because without that, we're not gonna be able to build anything. So
That's in our, we do have.
Well,
it's kind of there, but we could,
Right.
because as soon as you try to build something, developers, they're gonna turn and go right to the closest municipality and try to get it. I don't know if they have the stomach for affordable housing, where they want to. So if we could mandate it, that they had to do it. We reimburse them, obviously, we pay for it, but, that would help a long way to do that.
And the spring session starts January 16th, so we're not really gonna have a bill list
Right.
until after that. But regarding affordable housing, I would love to see our development department look into places in DuPage County where that's possible. Remember when they did a whole map about where the cannabis stores could be in DuPage County?
Yeah. 75% of my district, yeah.
Just,
But that would be interesting. I know I'm getting off.
if I may, we do have that, but we can't release it right now because.
Oh, we do have
They
that.
are working on that, right, but we can't release it.
So we know where we
Because people
could
would
have.
speculate and
yes.
try to buy that. first.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
guess I should have asked you the affordable housing chair.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Good point,
Okay,
yeah.
well, I was
Yeah.
thinking that. All right, well, I digress.
Should say-
So we've got member Eckhoff talking about causes for mental health issues. We've got member Chaplin, I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
Okay, I know.
Talking about
Yeah, I'm
gun
right there with you.
storage. And we've got member Hughes addition to the keeping our community safe. How do I go about asking for an amendment for all these things?
All right, so we have, member Hughes is very conveniently listing what's
Did
going on
everybody
by
get a copy of
page.
member Hughes? Okay, good.
does member, I think I'll start with, you know,
Yeah.
probably check with
So
member
she's
Eckhoff
got
to
the
see
food
where he
insecurity.
wants
I
that.
don't have anything.
And then where.
Oh,
we-
member Eckhoff, where would you like to go with the causes for mental health?
With parents.
Start with your mom.
Blame my parents.
You know, honestly, if I may,
Yes.
we know that trauma, right, like food insecurity, no shelter, no home, you know, environmental conditions, those all cause mental health issues. So if we can get to the basic needs of people, if we can meet their basic needs, that reduces mental illness by a great amount. You know, there's some people that have certain conditions, maybe like bipolar and things like that, that doesn't affect that. But a lot of the mental health that our kids and things are going through, you know, it's due to trauma and, you know, basic needs not being met. But if we can meet
You
those
know,
basic needs,
also
a lot of times
nutritional
that helps
foods.
that.
I mean, if
Well,
people
that's
are eating
right. That's what I'm
McDonald's
saying,
every
yes.
day.
But we've always had that.
Versus-
Blaming social media and talk.
Well, social media, I think too. Yes, absolutely.
I'm not gonna disagree with you.
Not gonna disagree with you.
So,
Yeah, my guess is he wants it somewhere on page 11, statement.
Yeah,
Advocating for solutions.
so you'd like to advocate for solutions on page 11, member Eckhoff?
To find out what the causes are so we can start dealing with those. In addition to.
Could you Google it?
Should I what?
Yeah,
Long
what's the
committee
apples
meeting.
and we
That's
can
what I
do,
want.
but hey.
I think we're gonna be discussing
I
that
think
at the DCS. I think that's what we're gonna be discussing
Yeah,
at
I
the,
agree.
at the council,
Address
so.
these issues,
right.
I think, get better.
I don't think there's a set cause for every single person. So.
All right.
So
So.
why is long?
Um,
And then Chaplain.
So is there a certain word, I'm sorry, or, I don't understand what I'm supposed to add for mental health, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm,
And we could add, you know, we can do mine next month if you want.
No, we
might as
might,
well
we
do it
might
all
at least
at
take
once.
up.
okay, so I would propose amending the legislative priorities, page 11, to advocating for the cause of mental health. And then under keeping our communities safe,
Or we could just do another mental health, the very first one is mental
Yeah.
health.
right?
Page 11.
Page
the-
one.
The detailed one.
Yeah, the detail one.
Oh, is it page 11?
At least that's what my parents said.
Okay, under keeping
Okay,
our
gotcha.
communities safe,
I don't mind that number.
the amendment would be what,
To page 5.
page 5? For member use amendment, and also page 10 for member use amendment. And then for member Chaplin's amendment, can we add a bullet point about healthy
Food
food?
I'll just type it like that,
security
right?
On page 10.
On page 10. Can I get a second for those
Second.
amendments I just mentioned? All right. So now we've got,
I'm in favor of food, yes.
you're in favor of food?
Okay, I don't have it.
Well,
Are you good? Do we know?
you know, I'll get the language to show.
Yes.
So you need a motion, a second, and then.
I move, we got a second.
Second,
Okay.
all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes as amended. All right, thank you so much. So just to refresh,
You made a motion.
just to
Oh, did mine
refresh,
drop off?
we've got the amendments that everybody's mentioned. Echo, thank you for yours. Chaplain, thank you for yours.
So I will enroll it before the January 9th county board meeting
Yes,
into a new document that I'll send
Perfect.
everyone.
thank you.
And then I also want to let you know Chair Conroy is working, finding a location. We're gonna try and have a legislative breakfast again at the end of January. We had one for many years.
You did. And then COVID.
And then COVID, and then we do have to post it as a committee meeting. So if people want to come, we have to feed them, and it's the way it is. So, but usually I don't get a lot of other people.
Cheryl, when do you think our
We
next
only have to
meeting is
post it in
going
the lobby
to
of the county building, right?
be? January,
I'm sorry.
what?
January 9th.
January 9th will be your next
Right.
meeting. All right, do we have any old business?
And one request.
Yes, member Echo.
When we get an amendment like this, that's got certain statistics in it, Liz was talking about certain statistics. If I could see, read the article that you've read, because people ask me this, and I'm like, how do you know that, Eckhoff? And I'm like, oh, somebody told me.
You know, I think Cheryl will distill it down to just a couple of sentences.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, she says,
Well, you know what, actually, we heard about that at the breakfast we were at, for the mental health. We went a month ago, and remember, and I got up and I said, what I'm taking away from this is when basic needs are met,
Oh, right.
right?
Right.
So I'll get that meeting.
I have no doubt that you're correct. I'm just saying, I
Yeah.
like to read it because people ask me, I
And
don't
that's
know.
why you're here. Meeting we learned about it.
She's got 40 to 50% of all murders.
And I just want a really quick announcement.
Okay,
You
you know what,
So
I
you know,
No.
ISACO is doing, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
I passed the amendment, but
Oh,
we
we didn't
didn't
do that.
pass the actual thing. So I would like to make a motion to approve LEG-R-00001 24 as amended. Second by Childress. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, did I do it right?
Yep, you did fine.
Okay, perfect.
Do it right.
Yep.
I was just gonna say, I know everyone wants to leave. ISACO, Illinois State Association of Counties, is going to host their first drive-down event on April 10th. So I will be sending out more information. I know Chair Conroy had talked about maybe instead of bringing 13, 15 people to Springfield, which is really hard logistically to manage, doing small groups, like maybe taking people from the Environmental Committee or Human Services Committee down. But April 10th would be a good opportunity to go with all of their county board members. So I'll send some more information on about
We
that.
want to take stormwater
Thank you.
transportation.
All
there
right,
too,
any
of course.
other new old business? Any new business? Okay, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.
We never acknowledged me as vice chair, but I understand.
I'm sorry.